All right, guys, we are back. Knight Brothers commentary, NBA version. We've kind of been bouncing around here in terms of last time it was the autism podcast. Matt, just as we lead into this, you spoke at the conference. How did that go?
Yeah, it went pretty well, actually.
Okay, so we're going to have more on that in the next autism podcast, but we're kind of change of pace again here into the NBA commentary. We want to bring some sports into this discussion. We've got our younger brother Ryan, who's going to kind of help provide some of his opinion. And today's National Basketball Association, there have been some proposed changes that you may have been hearing, in the sports stratosphere, if you will. And Matt's got some thoughts and has outlined some talking points. So with that, Matt, let's dive right in. Where are we starting?
All right, we're going to start with the MidSeason Tournament that Adam Silver is thinking about bringing in. So, from what I understand, it's going to be something kind of more like the FA Cup or maybe like the United States Open Cup, if you're familiar with U.S. soccer and English soccer. So, basically what that is, that's just kind of like, it's kind of like a supplement, it's basically a supplementary competition that takes place alongside the regular season games. So I think that's what Adam Silver is kind of going for, but if I'm being honest, I don't really think that's really going to be a good change. I feel like that's just going to take the whole load management issue thing and just blow it out of proportion, probably more so than it is now. So, all right, Ryan, what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on the tournament?
I would probably agree with that. I don't know. I think it's probably something that looks kind of good on paper, but ultimately just it won't work out because I don't see the players. What's the stake? What do you win by winning it? Is there anything? Is there even a guarantee? Does it get you in the playoffs for future, or is it just literally an in-season tournament with no other repercussions down the season?
Yeah.
The way that I've seen it is it's a standalone tournament.
Okay, so it's just on its own.
In order to build some credibility for teams actually, I can't imagine a team wanting to hang a banner for the mid-season tournament. There's just not a lot of. Obviously, you got to start somewhere, but and I'm not even taking the basketball purist approach. I just don't see how you're going to get the players to buy in.
Absolutely.
Because if I'm, and I'm just going to use just a little bit of current context.
Yeah.
The Lakers are setting the league on fire right now.
Yeah.
LeBron James obviously is in the twilight of his career. I don't like LeBron for a variety of reasons, but my point and where I'm going with this is he could he doesn't care at all. If you started a mid-season tournament tomorrow, his legacy is about winning championships at this point. And that's it. And that's how people have been measured, for the better part of the last 40, 50 years in the league is on how many titles do you have? Set everything else aside, that comes first. So for somebody like him to buy into a mid-season tournament, I think you're just going to see the teams that are sitting well with strong records probably figure out a way. Now you can pay the guys, for playing, or you can pay them if they win the tournament. Maybe, and I don't know, Matt, I'll ask you, has anything been proposed in terms of how the mid-season tournament would affect end-of-season playoff positioning? Has there been anything on that?
That's the only thing I could see the players really getting in for is if they thought, if we win this tournament, we get at least a home court advantage for one series or something weird. But,
to be honest, I don't know if that's the case.
Okay.
I feel like it's going to be, if you ever watched, again, I'm a soccer fan, so I kind of understand what
when you say FA Cup, what is that?
Yeah, it's basically kind of like a domestic competition where soccer clubs from all across the levels, from the Premier League all the way down to the bottom tier, can all compete against each other for a national championship.
Okay.
And then is that in mid-season for them too?
Well, here it's not just mid-season; it's basically throughout the entire season.
And you're talking about the Premier League has their own season. Another team has a different season, and they come out of their individual leagues to compete for the FA Cup.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's almost
that's kind of what I think Adam Silver was going for. I think.
Yeah.
I could be entirely wrong on that, but I mean, but if you have any comments, please let us know. So, kind of moving on.
You know, and I think I'll say one more thing on the topic.
Yeah.
I understand that you want to be innovative. You want to make sure that you're staying ahead of things with the product.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, I don't know. Doing something like right now, I think the proposed dates were sometime in November or December.
Yeah, I think it's like in between Thanksgiving and Christmas from what I heard.
Yeah, I mean, teams are just, like, I feel like the season's just starting to hit its stride. I mean, I say we, I'm talking about the Pacers. We haven't even been really healthy yet.
Yeah.
You know, I think the injury piece is the hardest part. If you have players going all out for a mid-season tournament, and if we were to, you know, just selfishly, if we were to lose a Miles or a Domas or a Brogdon, I'd be sitting there scratching my head like, oh, good thing we sold out for the mid-season tourney, you know, and now our season's shot. So it'll be interesting. Maybe it's one of those. I'll tell you from my experience, just in my company, we did some research, some consumer research around what we call design thinking, where we were basically throwing out these really crazy ideas just to see what the reaction was, and then what ended up happening was a much more scaled back version of that. I do think change is coming. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure it's necessarily to this degree, but we'll see.
Yeah. So kind of moving on to the postseason play-in. From what I understand, it's going to be more of kind of like an NCAA tournament playoff kind of thing, where like 4 teams. I think it's the 7th through 10th seeds, like right at the end of the regular season. I mean, they're going to be kind of coming in and saying, hey, you know what? I mean, we're going to try to play in for the 7th and 8th spots. I think is what Adam Silver's going for. So, I mean, I could be wrong. So, from what I read, and I could be wrong on this too, I think the 7th seed is supposed to host the 8th seed, and then the 9th is going to host the 10th. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then the winner of the 10th seed game is going to be facing the loser of the 7th and 8th matchup for that final playoff spot. Or, I mean, that's what I've read, but I could be
curious,
entirely
Matt,
wrong.
what are your thoughts on this piece? I think we may have different opinions on this one.
Honestly, I kind of like it.
Yeah.
I kind of do. I feel like it kind of gives more teams a chance to actually enter the playoffs, which will hopefully reduce tanking. I mean, but again, I could be wrong on that, so what's your opinion?
Yeah. Ryan?
Oh, mine? Oh, well, I personally do like it. Well, to a certain degree, I think it adds a lot of cool things. One, I think it'd be cooler because, I don't know, as we talk Pacers, a lot of the East, there are usually, 4 or 5 strong teams, and the East has a lot of weaker. So it'd help those weaker teams at least continue trying playing. And also, that game could be really fun. The NBA doesn't really have a one-and-done style game that we've seen in, like, baseball. And I think the atmospheres at those games for, a team like, we have some notes like the Lakers last year in Minnesota who were down. I mean, could you imagine a Staples Center game where, the Lakers are about to go in or out of the playoffs? That could be a huge deal. I don't know, fun game.
Oh, absolutely.
I think this is much more likely than this tournament.
The in-season tournament is just awful.
This creates a lot more excitement, and again, to kind of bounce back to what we were talking about before with the injury piece, because it is such a big part of the NBA. It seems like every year somebody's getting injured that changes the tone of one conference or one division. This would allow a team that maybe, like the Pacers, let's say we didn't get Oladipo back until February. Well, we're not a true 10th seed. If we falter and fall to a 10th seed, it certainly would make those early round matchups once the playoffs started much more exciting, because you're going to get the right team, maybe the team that's hot, or getting a player back. Definitely. Some of that, sometimes, you go into those, and I know for every time, there's always the exception in the 1-8, but most of the time, Golden State has not been challenged in the first round. The Heat were not getting challenged in the first round. Even the only, speaking of the Pacers, the most challenging 1-8 in the last 3 or 4 years was us against the Hawks, where we almost blew it.
Should have probably.
And then didn't we get blown up by Boston last year?
That was last year.
Yeah. So but I think this is a much more realistic and probably fair to those teams, because how many times have we seen it that it comes down to a half a game.
Oh,
or
yeah.
one
Absolutely,
game,
yeah.
or something.
Or a tie break between teams.
And this gives the opportunity to the teams that are playing well and have the momentum to really represent, in the playoffs.
So I wanted to say one thing too. We said it's the 7th and the 8th. I would assume the 7th seed would probably host the 10th seed. If that would make more sense to me, just because.
I mean, I suppose that's fair.
Because you'd want, but either way, that's not a big deal.
I'm sure that's a good catch. That's probably what it is. Our notes say 7th would host 8th, 9th would host 10th.
I mean, because that's what I thought the article said.
Yeah.
But
well, we can clarify in the show notes. But either way, it would be those kind of 2 teams or 4 teams vying for 2 positions, which I think is, it's just to me is a cool idea.
Well, I don't know. I think it could be, like a team, let's say, who's been struggling to get in with like the Kings, who's always on the. It'd be cool for them to. I don't know, even if you won that game and then got blown out in a series, that's still kind of a cool season to be like, we had this big game, brought in the fans, city got hyped up.
Absolutely.
It would be kind of its
own.
So
honestly, I think it's really just good for basically the NBA all around, just kind of generate some early excitement.
Well, we've seen it work in other sports. So
absolutely, So I would say, kind of moving on,
I
mean, the playoffs reseeding, this one might be a little bit more controversial. I mean, not as controversial as the in-season tournament, I think, but probably more controversial than the postseason play-in, in my opinion. And I think from what Adam Silver is wanting to do, he wants to have like the top 4 teams, the final 4 teams in the playoff, have them reseeded 1 to 4 based on a regular season record. And that way you could probably have like the 2 East teams going off against the 2 West teams in the semifinal, or maybe have like the 2 East teams going off in the finals, or the 2 West teams off in the finals, or that's what I think he's going for. Because I feel like, because if you, I don't know if anyone else has noticed, but I feel like the West has gotten so much better in terms of basketball.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
So I feel like that's what the NBA, that's what I think Adam Silver's trying to do. He's trying to get the more potentially like exciting game, like the more exciting series for the NBA championship.
So let me just clarify, just so I get it, because the notes for me are a little tough. So they're talking about, let's say like the playoffs ended today, and it was like Lakers, Bucks, Clippers, Raptors, It would be they would split them on record, right?
Yeah.
So like the Lakers could be competing in the Eastern Conference side of the playoffs.
The conference, basically, they're doing away with conferences.
Yeah, that's kind of what they're doing.
You would take East and West off of those 4 teams, rank them 1 to 4 in terms of overall regular season record, and then it would just play out. The 1 v the 4, the 2 v the 3. You could have it where the West is the 1 and the 4, and the East are the 2 and the 3. So you end up with a West versus East.
Gotcha.
But you could also have it where maybe the top 2 teams were out of the West. And I think that's the direction. I actually don't like this, just because I guess I just like the fact that there is an East and a West. I think this gives more. I think the trickle-down effect to this is that you're going to see, again, players. This just gives more power to the players, truly, because they can go wherever they want and know that if they win, they'll have a shot at the finals, even if they go to a loaded West or a loaded East. Yeah. And right now, as you pointed out, Matt, it's the West, and they're top-heavy over there, and there's a ton of stars over there, which I guess I'm very biased, being in a small market team, over here, where I would rather us get a fair shake, so to speak. But, listen, the NBA's shown that they want to give more power to the players.
Especially Adam Silver.
And if that serves them well, so be it. So if this ends up happening, I'm not gonna stop watching the NBA.
Yeah.
I like the postseason play-in much more than I like the 30-team tournament in the middle of the season or the playoff reseeding.
And I agree. I feel like the playoff play-in is probably going to be the best thing, probably the best change out of the 4. But kind of moving on to the final one, which is the reduction of the regular season from 82 games to 78 games.
Yeah.
And I think that is also just because of the whole load management issue going on as well, because it's just like, people like me, and especially you two, we want to see the stars play.
Yeah.
We don't want to see them on the bench just kind of taking it easy, resting it up for the playoffs. We want to see them play. So I feel like, I personally feel like when it comes to the NBA, I agree with this change, because I feel like when you have lesser games, the games matter more. and thus hopefully the players will actually, like the star players, will hopefully just not sit out.
Yeah.
So what are your opinions?
I can feel a little bit of it. I'll say, I mean, they're only changing 4 games, so this isn't, to me, like a huge deal. I would be fine with it personally. I mean, 82, I mean, I watch all the games, or at least all the Pacer games, so I like all the games, and, you know, we get to see a ton, but I get the load management, so this would take out 4 games, and a lot of times load management, I think, is a little overblown. Like, I know the big one right now is Kawhi, who's sitting a lot, and it does suck, but I think it's just the way it's going, and right now, you know, his argument's going to be, look at what happened last year. He load managed. They went to the finals. He looked healthy.
Yeah.
And look what the Warriors were. Injured. I mean, it was a flip. So I like it in the sense that you can maybe, you know, give more teams, no back-to-backs maybe. Cut all those out. You can get 3 days in between games instead of. But the only thing I guess that also kind of would be different is maybe, you know, stats, all-time stats would change a little bit just because players would play less games. But I don't think that would be a huge deal.
Yeah.
Just in terms.
I would, and like you said, Ryan, it's only 4 games.
Yeah.
I would rather them maybe spread the season out and give a little bit more rest, scheduled rest in between. I mean, I think about the Pacers this week of Thanksgiving. They played on Wednesday night at home. Then it was Thursday was Thanksgiving, so they're probably traveling, family, whatever. Then they had a game Friday, and then they had a back-to-back on Saturday. So they literally they flew out after an overtime game on Friday, landed, got in at 2 a.m., and then had to turn around and play, in Philadelphia. To me, if we just maybe started the season at the beginning of October instead of the end, or when, and I know these guys will argue, but we're not going to get away from load management for the very reason you said with Kawhi. It works. Yeah, I mean, it works, and these guys are bigger, faster, stronger than they've ever been. They can't risk their health. Yeah, they want to play long careers. So I think, whether it's 82 or 78, I think if we start to spread it out a little bit more, just make the season a bigger part of the year, I would rather see them do that and schedule in more rest days so the league's not forced to do some of these ridiculous back-to-backs, 3 games in 4 nights over a holiday. I mean, to me, that was, we almost won last night in Philly, but that was ridiculous.
I mean, we have to, and it's not going to end. We play every other night for the rest of, I think, the month. So, I mean, you talk about, load management, but guys, I mean, as you said, they're bigger. I mean, like Embiid, and now we see Zion. I mean, those guys are taking beatings. So, giving them more time. We want to see them healthy, and we want to see them play. So, whichever way. Giving more rest, I like, just because then hopefully that's where it would go to. Yeah.
And I think culturally, the last point on this, Matt, before we kind of move on to the next item, is I think culturally in the league, and this goes across the NBA and all of kind of sports and Western society, there is such a magnifying glass on health, especially with like CTE, concussions, things like that.
No
and rightfully so. I mean, there were a lot of things that we as a society just didn't understand. That the days of rub some dirt on it and get back in the game. Those are few and far between. It's not he needs to man up culture anymore. And so I think we've got, like I said, whether it's 82, 78, whatever, we've got to understand that if you are the dad and the son or the mom and the daughter or whatever buying tickets to go see that superstar who comes once a year, the market has to adjust to that. They may or may not play. And so, owners are going to have to figure out how to balance out ticket prices and make sure. I mean, at the end of the day, the owner's got to put a good enough product on the floor that the people that live in that city want to see that team.
Oh, absolutely.
I say that tongue-in-cheek because it's a star-driven league. But, there's 2 sides to every story. So.
Yeah, so... I mean, do you guys have any other comments you want to make, or?
The NBA, I mean, on new rules, I think we've covered.
Yeah, so other than that, I think we're good. So
yeah, quick little update here. We'll get back to you if anything comes down on direction forward on this. I think it's all just proposed at this point.
Yeah, it's all just proposed. I think the rules. I think Adam Silver wants to get them I think he wants to introduce them by the 75th season, which is going to be like the 2020-2021 season, I think.
Okay.
So I think that's when he kind of wants to start all this stuff. But at the end of the day, I mean, some of them are probably going to be, some of them are going to be enacted, some of them are not. Yeah. I think the regular season game going down, the length of the regular season going down from 82 to 78, and the postseason playoff, and the postseason playoff play-in. Yeah. I think those two are going to be the ones that get in, and the in-season tournament and the playoff reseeding are probably not going to get in. That's just my personal opinion, but I could be wrong. So other than that, I think we're good. So
let us know what you think.
Yeah.
Thanks.